In the suburbs of New York lies a well-known institution called Lakewood High School. Surrounded by lush greenery, the campus is serene and modern with state-of-the-art facilities. Lakewood High is renowned for its rigorous academic standards and high-quality education. Every year, many of its students gain admission to top universities. The faculty is composed of elite teachers, each carefully selected for their exceptional teaching skills and dedication. While everything on the surface appears orderly and pristine, beneath this polished exterior, hidden tensions begin to brew. The protagonist, Alicia Sanders, is a 28-year-old English teacher known for her intelligence and professionalism. Since joining Lakewood 2 years ago, she has quickly become one of the most well-respected teachers, admired for her engaging teaching style and strict yet fair approach. In class, Alicia is patient and adept at sparking students' interest with her gentle demeanor. Despite her professional success, little is known about her personal life. Unlike the poised and composed teacher that everyone sees, Alicia harbors a deep and unspoken emotional struggle. Alicia's husband, Patrick, is a long-haul truck driver who spends most of his time on the road. His job keeps him away from home for days or even weeks at a time. Although their marriage began with warmth and affection, the long periods of separation have caused their relationship to cool over time. The excitement of married life has faded, replaced by the monotony of daily routine. Each night, Alicia returns to an empty, quiet home, feeling a profound sense of loneliness and an unfillable void. If you're curious about the unexpected twists that lie ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The story is just getting started. Everything seemed to start with Kevin Daniels. Kevin was the star player of the Wickwood High School basketball team, tall, charismatic, and with a bright smile that made him the center of attention. However, there was a less glamorous side to his life. His academic performance was terrible. He was failing several core subjects and was in danger of not graduating. To save their basketball star's future, the school arranged for Alicia Sanders to provide him with after-school tutoring. The tutoring sessions were scheduled for Wednesday and Friday evenings, held in Alicia's office. Initially, it was merely a routine task. Alicia patiently guided Kevin through the topics he had missed, while Kevin tried his best to cooperate, determined to pass his exams and continue playing basketball. As the sessions progressed, Alicia began to notice certain qualities in Kevin that set him apart. He wasn't just a sports-obsessed student. At times, he would ask surprisingly thoughtful questions during their discussions. Kevin, on the other hand, found something different in Alicia. Unlike other teachers who only cared about lectures and assignments, she seemed to genuinely care about him. As they spent more time together, the atmosphere between them grew subtly charged. One late night, after finishing a tutoring session, the wind outside howled, rattling the windows. Only the two of them remained in the quiet classroom. Alicia closed the textbook, just about to remind Kevin to head home, when he suddenly said, "Thank you, Miss Sanders. Without you, I probably would have given up." His voice trembled slightly, as though hiding a deeper emotion. Alicia looked up and met Kevin's eyes. There was a look of mixed gratitude and admiration in his gaze. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, and the line between reason and emotion blurred. Slowly, Kevin leaned in, and Alicia didn't move away. When Kevin's lips touched hers, she felt a long-lost thrill, as if an old desire buried deep within her had been awakened. After that night, they embarked on a secret and dangerous relationship. Every tutoring session became an opportunity for them to meet in secret, behind closed doors, with only the dim light illuminating their hidden world. However, both of them knew that this relationship was like a delicate thread suspended in midair, fragile and liable to snap at any moment, potentially leading to catastrophic consequences. The story started to become more complicated when another troublesome student, Jordan Moore, entered Alicia's life. Jordan, a star player on the football team, was bold and rebellious, always carrying an irresistible wild charm. His academic performance was just as poor, so the school once again asked Alicia to offer him tutoring. Initially, it seemed like a routine task, but with Jordan's arrival, a more dangerous storm began to brew. Unlike Kevin, Jordan didn't seem to take the tutoring sessions seriously. He often showed up casually, sometimes even late. However, his gaze was always bold and direct, laced with an unmistakable hint of teasing, which put Alicia under an unfamiliar kind of pressure. To make matters worse, Jordan appeared to have noticed the secret relationship between her and Kevin. On several occasions, when Kevin stayed behind after their sessions to spend time alone with Alicia, Jordan would pretend to pass by, standing at the doorway and observing them with an enigmatic smirk on his face. Over time, Alicia grew wary of Jordan's behavior. Yet, this wariness gradually transformed into an inescapable psychological burden. One evening, after a tutoring session, Jordan stayed back once again, pretending to need further clarification. After only a few minutes of discussion, he suddenly moved closer and said in a low voice, "You don't have to be nervous. I won't tell anyone." Alicia was momentarily speechless, her heart racing uncontrollably. Jordan smiled again and added, "But maybe we can get to know each other better." From that day on, Jordan frequently used tutoring as an excuse to get close to Alicia. Meanwhile, cracks began to form in her relationship with Kevin. Due to his busy schedule with games and academics, their time together became less frequent, and a growing distance developed between them. Sensing the gap, Jordan seized the opportunity, persistently approaching Alicia when she was most vulnerable. One late night, feeling emotionally drained, Alicia finally succumbed to Jordan's advances, leading to a fateful and irreversible encounter. None of this escaped Kevin's notice. He began to sense Alicia's growing indifference towards him, noticing that she often seemed distracted during their time together. His suspicions deepened when he caught Jordan casting smug, provocative glances at Alicia during tutoring sessions. These changes ignited a fire of jealousy within Kevin. He wanted to confront Alicia, but fear of losing her held him back, leaving him torn between anger and anxiety. With Jordan's involvement, Alicia's life plunged further into a perilous chaos. She found herself caught between two boys, unable to fend off Jordan's aggressive pursuit and struggling to ease Kevin's growing jealousy. This forbidden affair was spiraling out of control, and Alicia could see no way out. Amid the chaotic tangle of emotions, Alicia's life seemed as though it couldn't get any more complicated. Yet the appearance of a third student, Ethan Carter, completely shifted her inner balance. Ethan was one of the rare quiet students at Wickwood High. His academic performance was exceptional, and he often spent his time alone in the library, immersed in classic literary works. Unlike Kevin's cheerful energy or Jordan's boldness, Ethan was introverted and composed. He avoided social events, preferring to lose himself in the depths of complex ideas and prose. Alicia first noticed him during a school literary seminar. That day, Alicia shared her insights about a classic literary piece. While many students appeared indifferent, Ethan listened intently and approached her afterward to discuss the topic in more depth. After a long exchange, Alicia was surprised by Ethan's broad knowledge and unique perspective, while Ethan openly admired her literary expertise. For Alicia, it was a rare feeling, being truly understood. In her long teaching career, she had grown accustomed to students' respect and reliance on her, but rarely experienced this kind of deep, intellectual connection. From then on, Ethan often sought Alicia's guidance on literary matters after class. Alicia found herself enjoying these interactions, which felt pure and uncomplicated. For a brief time, she could set aside the emotional entanglements with Kevin and Jordan and savor a sense of calm. However, as time went on, their relationship gradually crossed the boundaries of a typical teacher-student dynamic. One afternoon, after discussing a novel in the library, Ethan suddenly said, "Miss Sanders, you're the only person who truly understands me." This simple statement deeply moved Alicia. Trapped in a cold and distant marriage for years, she had longed for this kind of understanding and care. In that moment, Ethan's warmth and maturity fostered an emotional dependence in her, different from what she had experienced with Kevin and Jordan. Initially, Alicia tried to suppress these feelings, convincing herself that this was merely an intellectual connection. However, one day after school, Ethan offered to walk her home. During the long walk, they shared many personal stories they had never told anyone else. At that moment, Alicia realized their bond had grown beyond mere literary discussions. It had become a deeper emotional attachment. Finally, after a late-night literary discussion, they sat in silence, gazing at each other for what felt like an eternity. Alicia could no longer resist the surge of emotions within her and leaned toward Ethan. What began as a purely intellectual connection inevitably crossed the forbidden line, becoming another secret chapter in Alicia's life. Though this relationship lacked the fiery passion and conflict of her ties with Kevin and Jordan, it planted deeper seeds of inner turmoil and anxiety in Alicia. She knew all too well that she was treading on dangerous ground, and every step forward risked pulling her further into a perilous abyss. It was a gloomy dusk with the sky shrouded in dark clouds, as if foreshadowing the chaos about to unfold. After school, the alley behind the campus was deserted, illuminated only by a few dim streetlights casting weak beams. In this hidden corner, Kevin, Jordan, and Ethan unexpectedly crossed paths. Initially, the atmosphere remained tense but calm. However, as their eyes met, the long-suppressed hostility erupted in an instant. "You think you're so much better than me?" Jordan taunted, his tone sharp as he shoved his hands into his pockets and stared disdainfully at Kevin. "Just because you're the basketball star doesn't mean you can have everything. She doesn't really care about you." Kevin's temper flared. He stepped forward, fists clenched, his eyes burning with rage. "At least she's willing to be with me, unlike some opportunistic jerk who's always sneaking around her." Ethan, standing off to the side, sensed that things were spiraling out of control. Hesitating, he tried to step in, saying, "This argument isn't going to solve anything. We've all gone too far." But his words were cut off by Jordan's mocking laughter. "Oh, and you think you're any different? Don't act like you're above all this. You've been sneaking around with her too, haven't you?" Jordan glared coldly at Ethan, his disdain evident. Before Ethan could respond, Kevin lost his composure and shoved Jordan hard. Jordan stumbled, but quickly regained his balance, turning back and throwing a fierce punch at Kevin's face. Within moments, the two were locked in a vicious scuffle, grappling and throwing punches without holding back. Ethan, alarmed, tried to separate them but was shoved aside by Jordan, falling to the ground in the process. Amid the chaos, Jordan noticed a rusty iron pipe lying nearby. Without thinking, he grabbed it and swung it hard at Kevin. A dull thud echoed as the pipe struck the side of Kevin's head. Kevin collapsed instantly, blood trickling down his forehead, staining the ground red. "Are you crazy?" Ethan shouted, rushing over to Kevin and kneeling beside him to check his injuries. Kevin's eyes barely fluttered open, his breathing weak, and it seemed like he might lose consciousness at any moment. Jordan stood frozen, the iron pipe slipping from his grasp, his face a mixture of shock and fear at what he had just done. At that moment, the sound of approaching sirens broke through the silence. Someone had clearly heard the commotion and called the police. "Run!" Jordan yelled, but his legs felt as if they were weighed down by lead, unable to move. Ethan ignored him, focusing on pressing a handkerchief to Kevin's wound in an attempt to stop the bleeding. Within minutes, police cars arrived at the scene, officers quickly exiting their vehicles with flashlights, scanning the dark alley. Jordan and Ethan were restrained by the police, while Kevin was placed on a stretcher and loaded into an ambulance. The flashing red and blue lights illuminated their pale, frightened faces. Meanwhile, Alicia was preparing to leave the school when she was stopped by an officer and informed that she was under investigation for inappropriate relations with students. Upon hearing that Kevin had been injured, she collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by despair. She had never imagined things would escalate to this point, and now everything was beyond her control. As the police car slowly drove away, the dimly lit alley behind Wickwood High fell silent once again, leaving behind scattered books, the fallen iron pipe, and a chilling trail of blood. After the incident that shocked the entire community, Alicia's life fell into irreversible ruin. On the day of her sentencing, she appeared in court wearing an orange prison uniform, her face pale and haggard. When the judge delivered the final verdict, 20 years in prison and permanent revocation of her teaching license, her eyes were dry, devoid of emotion. As she lowered her head and walked out of the courtroom, former students and parents who once admired and trusted her now lined the hallways, hurling accusations and condemnation. Alicia, however, could only step into a world behind bars where she would spend the rest of her days in isolation. Kevin's fate was equally grim. Due to severe head trauma, he suffered permanent disability, leaving the left side of his body partially paralyzed. Once a proud star of the basketball team and a hopeful future professional athlete, he now relied on crutches to move around. His parents tirelessly sought aid and rehabilitation opportunities for him, but Kevin himself remained lost and uncertain about what lay ahead. The bright-spirited boy he once was seemed forever gone. Jordan was sentenced to 3 years in prison for aggravated assault. During his time behind bars, he learned to hide his emotions, though the pain inside him never truly faded. After his release, he tried to rebuild his life by finding a simple job and staying far away from his past. Yet, every night when he lay in bed, the events of that fateful evening would replay in his mind. The moment he swung the metal pipe had become a haunting memory he could never escape. Ethan, as a minor involved in the fight, was sent to a juvenile detention center. Though his sentence was relatively short, the experience profoundly changed him. Once calm and gentle, he became more withdrawn and sensitive. Despite his efforts to move on through study and reading, the scars of that dark period remained etched in his heart, a shadow that would follow him into adulthood. After the incident became public, Wickwood High School became the focus of media scrutiny. Its reputation plummeted, with major newspapers covering the scandal extensively. Parents criticized the school's failure to manage its staff, and many chose to transfer their children elsewhere. Student enrollment sharply declined. Residents of the town, caught between shock and outrage, began to reflect on how such a tragedy could occur in their once peaceful community. The ordeal had irrevocably changed many lives, leaving behind wounds and lessons that could never be forgotten.